So we had Mike Pompeo recently going on like Fox News or CNN, talking about how they're looking at potentially banning TikTok, obviously a Chinese-owned social media app. And listen, I think it's kind of justified, frankly. Like, what is WeChat, WhatsApp, but they fucked it over? What is all these like Chinese versions of American apps? Is that you're stealing intellectual property and turning it into their own little, you know, censored version? And so why should the U.S. just be like, oh, China, just come over here. We'll let you steal all our data and all that fun stuff. Listen, China's been fucking us over in trade, in intellectual property stealing, in basically just every kind of aspect of life for the last 20, 30 years. And so this whole thing of, oh, no, it's, we need TikTok for our enjoyment. During lockdown, it's really important to me. No, I don't give a fuck, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. 1942, sorry, when, the Germans basically owned all of Europe's economy, we fucking had to ration supplies because we were fighting a horrible Nazi regime and a horrible Nazi party, which was literally killing Jews for no reason, killing 15 million Jews over a 6-year span, maybe. And now, suddenly, like, we have to be all fucking, no, we don't want to delete TikTok. I don't give a fuck if you don't want to delete TikTok. Let's not forget, like, this follows a ban in India because they decided to, you know what, guys? We've already taken quite a bit of Indian territory, but let's take a little bit more. But then, because we have a ceasefire, we're just gonna fucking whip out some fucking wooden weapons with like nails on the end of them and just beat people to death. And killed 20 Indian troops. I don't know how many Chinese died, but listen, China's not a fun place. The Chinese Communist Party is what I consider to be the modern 21st century version of the Nazi regime, frankly, because listen, you have total authoritarian rule, you have demographic genocide, you have concentration camps, literal concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims, because they want to, have a bigger majority of Han Chinese. It's a literal genocide. It's a literal demographic genocide. They want to have more of what do they call the supreme Hans. They want less of like the inferior Uyghurs. It's literally that simple. And what's that? How is that different from the Nazis? Okay, we get it. Like, they're not putting them in gas chambers, but they're effectively trying to reduce them. Like, I'm pretty sure the birth rate for Uyghurs is like less than 1 at the moment because they just stopped it from happening. And so at the same time you have this, you also have, I don't know. I recently saw a story on them creating a DNA database. So they go into little like schools and like kindergartens and stuff. And they get DNA samples of all men, of all males, and they're literally gonna make the longer term plan is to make an entire database, an entire DNA database for every single Chinese, so they know your literal DNA. How is this like just going unchecked? And this is we're like, oh no. China makes us a lot of good stuff, so it's just like, no, I don't give a fuck. It's a literal Nazi regime. I think we should ban TikTok. I think we should ban basically just about every single Chinese-made thing, and just say fuck off, guys. Like, you can't just go off to China, make your products with like a little bit with like larger margins. No, you just come back home, pay slightly more for labor, keep your margins, make them slightly smaller. I don't really care. And then as a result, you have much more labor participation, higher wages, and everybody kind of wins in the long term. And then China, who's literally like the only reason that they are powerful economically today is because they stole America's and the rest of the world's intellectual property, and they kept their currency down, and they kept a large part of their population poor, so they like kept on being considered as a developing nation. And they're playing like they're literally playing all of us, and we're all following for it. And this whole like, I don't even get why there's any kind of black backlash to TikTok being banned, because frankly, I think it's kind of overdue. We obviously had Huawei, Listen, every single Chinese company that collects data is all for the Chinese Communist Party. The same party that's killing Uyghurs, the same party that's collecting DNA samples of little kids. Do you want that to happen? I don't. And there's already been like an ongoing investigation about not about violating the data protection of little kids for TikTok. So, listen, you might think, oh, like on the face of it, China's a nice little like well-run society. What the fuck's happening in Hong Kong? They literally had an actual deal with the UK to say they keep their democratic status, their somewhat independent status until 50 years from now. It's been like 30 years, and they're just destroy the law completely, and nobody even like really can do anything about it because all our big friends over there, they're making quite a lot of money in China, so let's keep allowing it. No, it's completely abhorrent. We should, in my opinion, there should be no such thing as any kind of Chinese software in the US. I mean, at the limit, you can have Chinese manufacturing because that doesn't actually take our data as such. But even then, like, I'd prefer just saying, fuck off with China. First of all, they've been incredibly unfair with the TPP. Like, the huge difference in wages and in labor standards makes it literally impossible for the US to compete. And so they've been abusing us and taking away all our jobs for the last 20 years. And everybody's fine with it until now. And even now when, you want to ban TikTok, people are going like, oh no, but, we need TikTok. I don't give a shit if you need TikTok, kid. You can just go on Facebook, go on Instagram, where they're actual private entities and they don't do the bidding of a Nazi party. Of an authoritarian, evil party. So it's quite black and white, which is rare. I usually kind of see the nuances and things, but for this one, I literally don't see any kind of reason for why we should allow Chinese, just intelligence being openly available in the U.S. It's not like we have the same thing going on in China, because in China, U.S. enterprises are still private, so they don't go to the White, the White House can't go to, I don't know, J.P. Morgan and say, hey, can you just give us all the financial records you have of all Chinese citizens? They can't do that. Because in the US, there's a certain thing of like private and public. They're separate entities. And China doesn't exist. So for me, if it was up to me, I'd ban all Chinese goods. Obviously not immediately, but I'd say, I don't know, you have a 5-year you have a 5-year kind of like you have 5 years before you can do it. Because let's not forget, like, everything is made in China, but the majority of these goods that are made in China are consumed elsewhere in the world. So if you just say, guys, you can't actually pay your workers 50 cents an hour and then send it to the US for free, you're gonna have to pay like a huge ass tariff on it. Then they're gonna go back to the US. Like, it's that simple. But obviously not, because they're all frauds and they're gonna do the bidding of those big corporations who want slightly bigger margins, not slightly, massive margins. And frankly, they'd still be profitable if they moved to the US. Like, there's no doubt about it. If they would just create more jobs, create better paying jobs, and then as a result, the consumer economy is suddenly all of a sudden way better than it is at the moment. So to me, it's black and white. Just fucking ban TikTok, ban all of it. I don't really care, because that's what they did. That's literally what they've been doing to us for the last 20 years. Every kind of new American technology, they steal from it and they make it their own. What is WeChat? What is Alibaba? It's fucking black and white.